الحمد لله وحده والصلاة والسلام على من لا نبي بعده أما بعد فأعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم ولقد مننا على موسى وهارون ونجيناهما وقومهما من الكرب العظيم ونصرناهم فكانوا هم الغالبين وآتيناهما الكتاب المستبين وهديناهما الصراط المستقيم وتركنا عليهما في الآخرين سلام على موسى وهارون إنا كذلك نجزي المحسنين إنهما من عبادنا المؤمنين وإن إلياس لمن المرسلين إذ قال لقومه ألا تتقون فتدعون بعلا وتذرون أحسن الخالقين الله ربكم ورب آبائكم الأولين فكذبوه فإنهم لمحضرون إلا عباد الله المخلصين وتركنا عليه في الآخرين سلام على إلياسين إنا كذلك نجزي المحسنين إنه من عبادنا المؤمنين صدق الله مولانا العظيم رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقه قولي سبحانك لا علم لنا إلا ما علمتنا إنك أنت العليم الحكيم اللهم انفعنا بما علمتنا وعلمنا ما ينفعنا إن الله وملائكته يصلون على النبي يا أيها الذين آمنوا صلوا عليه وسلموا تسليما اللهم صل وسلم وبارك على سيدنا ومولانا محمد وعلى آله وأصحابه وأتباعه وأزواجه وذرياته وَلَقَدْ مَنَنَّا عَلَى مُوسَى وَهَارُونَ Undoubtedly we favored Musa alayhi salam and Haaroon alayhi salam. We continue with the commentary of Surah As-Saffat, and prior to this Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has discussed the incidents of the Prophet Nuh alayhi salatu wassalam and the Prophet Ibrahim alayhi salatu wassalam. And in the incident of Prophet Ibrahim alayhi salatu wassalam, we also find the mention of his two sons, Ismail alayhi salam and Ishaq alayhi salam. Moving on, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala next mentions regarding Sayyiduna Musa alayhi salam and his brother Sayyiduna Haaroon alayhi salam. These were two prophets of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala also. As far as Musa alayhi salatu wassalam and Haaroon alayhi salam are concerned, their stories have been mentioned in many places in the Qur'an. In fact, Musa alayhi salatu wassalam's incidents have been mentioned in the Qur'an more than any other prophet. And if we were to study the glorious Qur'an, then one point which we find is that in the Quran you will find direct mention of the incidents of Musa alayhi salatu wassalam, and likewise the incidents of Isa alayhi salatu wassalam, even more than you will find of our beloved Rasul sallallahu alayhi wasallam. And one reason for this is that there were two major religions before Islam. There were the Jews and there were the Christians, the people of the book. Musa alayhi salatu wassalam is that prophet who is believed by the Jews, and Isa alayhi salatu wassalam is the prophet who is believed by the Christians. So this is also a proof that the glorious Qur'an is the book of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala revealed to Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Because in here there is an indication that if Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam wished and desired, if he had made up this Qur'an himself, would he have spoken more regarding the prophet of the Jews and the prophet of the Christians, or regarding himself? But we don't find that there is more mention of the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. We find more mention of Musa alayhi salam and Isa alayhi salam. So anyway, as far as Musa alayhi salam is concerned, Allah Ta'ala has mentioned his incident in many places with much more detail. Here in Surah As-Saffat there is a very brief mention of Musa alayhi salam and Haaroon alayhi salam. Allah Ta'ala has just touched upon the mention of their lives in a very few verses, and thereafter he moves on. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that وَلَقَدْ مَنَنَّا عَلَى مُوسَى وَهَارُونَ. Undoubtedly we favored Musa alayhi salam and Haaroon alayhi salam. Now every human being has been granted many favors by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Each and every human being, if he was to ponder over his life, then the favors of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala are countless. Allah Ta'ala himself says, وَإِن تَعُدُّوا نِعْمَةَ اللَّهِ لَا تُحْصُوهَا. That if you were to try and count the favors of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala with which you have been blessed with, then you will not be able to do so. This is impossible. Because even before we are born, these favors begin. Even before our mothers expected us. Because the favors with which our parents were blessed with, indirectly they are also favors upon us. Had they not come into existence, we would not have come into existence. And if we did not come into existence, then everything that we are benefiting from, we would not have benefited from. And that means that if that is a favor, then their parents, our grandparents, they are also a favor for us. And everything they were granted, that's all favors for us also. And this goes all the way back to Adam alayhi salam. So right from the existence of the first human being, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala already began showering favors upon us. And then once we came into existence, then the favors are uncountable. From the moment a person wakes up in the morning, he is surrounded by the favors of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Every breath that we take, every breath is a favor of Allah. If Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala was to press the stop button and you can't breathe, how long are you going to live for? If Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala was to decide that from this moment you will not be able to see, then there is no power and force in the entire world that will be able to make us see. If for a moment we were to just close our eyes in a dark room and just meditate and think for a while, then just imagine Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala took away this eyesight. So all of these favors that we take for granted, we wake up in the morning and the breakfast is ready. In the afternoon we have our lunch. At night you have your dinner. And day in, day out, the same routine. So we take it for granted. But these are all the favors of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala which we are drowning in. So Hazrat Haji Farooq Sahib rahmatullahi alayhi used to mention that you and I, we are drowning in the favors of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It's necessary for us that we drown in the gratefulness of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And if we are grateful to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the benefit of this will be that the more a person is grateful to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the more Allah ta'ala increases the blessings. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions in the Qur'an that لَإِن شَكَرْتُمْ لَأَزِيدَنَّكُمْ. If you are grateful to Allah, then Allah ta'ala will increase your blessings. He will give you even more. And one of the greatest ways to be grateful to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is that a person, he accepts that it is not possible for me to be grateful to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala the way I am supposed to be grateful to Allah. Hazrat Dawood alayhi salatu was salam, once he said to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that, "Oh Allah, I am grateful to you for all the blessings you have bestowed me with." Allah ta'ala had commanded him. Allah ta'ala says in the Qur'an, "I'malu ala Dawood shukra." That, oh, the family of Dawood, carry out the amal and the action of being grateful. From here we learn a lesson that in the Quran Allah Ta'ala mentions here that carry out the amal and the action of being grateful to Allah. Which shows that you cannot just simply be grateful with your tongue. If you keep saying that, "Oh Allah, we thank you for everything you have given us," but practically you do not show gratefulness, then you are not truly being grateful to Allah. And how do you practically be grateful to Allah? That you utilize every favor that Allah Ta'ala has given you the way it is supposed to be utilized. Allah Ta'ala has blessed you with eyes. Now if you look at those things which are not permissible, which are haram, this is not being grateful to Allah. Your whole life you say, "Oh Allah, I thank you for giving me eyes." But at the same time you are watching things you are not supposed to watch. You are looking at things you are not supposed to look at. Then this is not gratefulness. So together with verbal gratitude, you have to also have practical gratitude. So Hazrat Dawood alayhi salatu was salam's family, when they were commanded that be grateful to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, they had set a system in their home that there was one corner in their house which was stipulated only for the ibadah and worship of Allah. And 24 hours of the day there would be at least one person in there worshipping Allah Ta'ala. They had set a timetable that from this time to this time the father will do ibadah, from this time to this time the mother will do ibadah, from this time to this time the son will do ibadah. So there would never be a moment when someone in that house was not worshipping Allah. But when Dawood alayhi salatu was salam said to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, "I am grateful to you," verbally also and physically also they showed their gratitude. Dawood alayhi salatu was salam thought to himself that this being grateful to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, this is also a blessing of Allah. So this also requires being grateful to Him. So he said that, oh Allah, I have been grateful for all the previous favors, but I am also being grateful to you for giving me this opportunity to do shukr to you, to be grateful to you. Then after a short time he thought to himself that this is also a favor of Allah, that I was given a second opportunity to be grateful to Allah. So upon this I need to be grateful. And he did this a few times until he conceded that, oh Allah, it is not possible for me to be grateful to you. So upon this Allah Ta'ala replied to Dawood alayhi salam that, Al-an Dawood shakartani, that, oh Dawood, now you have truly been grateful to me. When you have accepted that you are a servant, and a servant can never be grateful to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So we have been blessed with so many favors. One is from the worldly aspect. That from the worldly aspect, when we look into our lives, we find that Allah Ta'ala has given us so much. The materialistic items. And thereafter, there are a second type of ni'mat and second type of favors also, which are the spiritual favors. Allah Ta'ala has blessed us with Iman. This Iman is such a great favor that we cannot comprehend how great this is. Without this Iman, a person will not be able to enter paradise. And with this Iman, a person has no good deeds. But if he leaves this world with this Iman, then one day definitely he will go into Jannah. And what Jannah will he be given? Imam Bukhari rahmatullahi alayhi mentions that the very last human being to go into paradise, this person will be that person that he will have left this world with Iman, and without Iman he will have no actions. This is why he will be the last human being. From all those who had Iman, the very last person to go into paradise. So he will be punished in the hellfire for the longest. And after being punished in the hellfire, when it will be his time to finally go into paradise, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will give him the opportunity to speak to him. So he will say that, oh Allah, you have punished me for so long. For such a long time you have punished me. But I also had Iman. I believed in you. I didn't do anything good. I didn't refrain from the sins. I lived a very sinful life. But I had Iman. In my heart I believed in you. So the minimum I ask for is that you just remove me from the hellfire. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will say that I accept this request of yours. And I will remove you from the hellfire. But promise me that you will not ask for anything else after this. So he will say, yes, oh Allah, I promise you. Just remove me from the hellfire. This punishment is too much now. And I promise you, I will not ask for anything else. Allah Ta'ala will remove him. And Allah Ta'ala will make him sit in such a place that he will be able to feel the heat of Jahannam, and he will be able to smell the odor of Jahannam. After some time will pass, he will say, oh Allah, you have taken me out from Jahannam, but I can still smell Jahannam and I can still feel the heat of Jahannam. So just move me to a place where I can no longer feel the heat and no longer smell the odor. Allah Ta'ala will say, did you not promise me that you will not ask for anything else? He said, yes, I did. Do you promise me that if I move you from here, you will not ask again? He will say, yes, I promise you, I will not ask again. Now Allah Ta'ala will make him sit in such a place that from this place he will be able to see paradise. Now he is looking at paradise and the thought is crossing his mind that I can see paradise. Just imagine if I was inside paradise. So again he will request Allah that, oh Allah, You have made me sit here, at least let me sit more closer to paradise so I can see inside paradise. Again Allah Ta'ala will say that, did you not promise me that you are not going to ask for anything else? And finally, when he is completely close to paradise, he will say that, now, O Allah, you have made me right on the edge of paradise, make me enter paradise. Again Allah Ta'ala will say, did you not promise me that you will not ask for anything else? And then Allah Ta'ala will say to him that, enter into paradise, and the paradise I am giving you is 10 times the size of the world. 10 times the size of the entire world. This is your paradise. So he will say, oh Allah, why are you making fun out of me? He will not believe it. I am the last person to enter Jannah. I am completely wretched. For me, even a small corner in paradise would be sufficient. And you are saying you are going to give me a Jannah which will be 10 times the size of the world? So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will say, no, I am not making fun out of you. This is the reality, that the last person to enter Jannah, his Jannah will be the size which will be 10 times the size of this world. When Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam narrated this hadith to the companions, the Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam smiled. And Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam said, look at how Allah Ta'ala will converse with the very last person to enter Jannah. If this will be Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's manner with the last person, then imagine the other people who will enter paradise. So this iman is a great gift of Allah Ta'ala. This iman. Another hadith, the hadith of Qirtas, where a person will come and in the scale of deeds, it will be full of evil deeds. The left palm will be full of evil deeds. There will be 100 registers, and every register is full of evil deeds. This person will feel that for me is Jahannam. There is no way I can go into Jannah. Then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will say to the angel, there is one good deed he has. And this will be the kalima la ilaha illallah, the iman which he had. So he will say, what's the point of putting this one paper here when there are 100 registers of bad deeds here? But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will say, no, today is the day of justice. So I will not just put you into Jahannam without first carrying out this hisab and this reckoning. As soon as this one paper, this kalima la ilaha illallah will be placed on this side of the scale, it will outweigh the 100 registers of evil deeds. So iman is a great gift of Allah Ta'ala. And after iman, all other spiritual favors and blessings which Allah Ta'ala blesses a person with, these are such blessings that the monetary and the materialistic items, they can never compete with these favors. There is no match and there is no comparison. What did Hazrat Ali radiallahu ta'ala anhu used to say in his time? He used to say, Radina qismat al-jabbari fina, lana ilmun walil juhali malu. He used to say, we are pleased with the distribution of Allah Ta'ala. That Allah Ta'ala has blessed us with ilm, with the knowledge of deen. And He has blessed the ignorant with wealth. So he was saying that we find two types of people. There are certain people, Allah Ta'ala, He blesses them with ilm, with the knowledge of deen. But He doesn't give them a vast amount of wealth and money. And you have a second group of people, Allah Ta'ala blesses them with a vast amount of wealth and money, but He deprives them of ilm and the knowledge of deen. So he would recite this couplet that the Radina qismat al-jabbari fina. We are very pleased with the distribution of Allah Ta'ala. Lana ilmun, He gave us knowledge. Walil juhali malu, and He gave the ignorant wealth. فَإِنَّ الْمَالَ يَفْنَى عَنْ قَرِيبٍ. Why are we happy? Because this wealth which these people have, this will come to an end very quickly. Either they will spend their wealth, or they will leave this world and the wealth will remain behind. Wealth is not going to remain forever. وَالْإِلْمُ بَاقٍ لَا يَزَالُ. But as far as ilm and knowledge is concerned, it will remain forever and ever. It will benefit this person in this world also. It will benefit him at the time of death also. It will benefit him in the grave also. And it will benefit him forever and ever in the hereafter also. So وَلَقَدْ مَنَنَّا عَلَى مُوسَى وَهَارُونَ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that we favored Musa and Haaroon alayhi salam. So in here there is an indication that just as we favor all human beings, we favor them also. But on top of this, there is also an indication towards the fact that we favor them with a very great favor, which was the favor of prophethood. We made Musa alayhi salam a prophet also, and we made Haaroon alayhi salam a prophet also. وَنَجَّيْنَاهُمَا وَقَوْمَهُمَا مِنَ الْكَرْبِ الْعَظِيمِ. And we rescued the two of them and their people from great distress. This refers to the tyranny of Fir'aun. That Fir'aun and the Pharaoh, who would kill any boy which was born in the Banu Israel. He was informed by his fortune tellers that your kingdom is going to come to an end at the hands of a boy who will be born in Banu Israel. So the plan which he devised was that any boy which is born, he will be killed. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He protected Hazrat Musa alayhi salatu wassalam. And the incident is mentioned. We will discuss this when that particular surah is being taught. So anyway, Musa alayhi salatu wassalam and his people, they were saved from Fir'aun and his tyranny. So in here Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions two types of favors. One is a positive favor, that when you give something to someone, this is one way you can do a favor upon them. And the second type of favor is that you don't give something to someone, but you save them from a calamity. You save them from a problem. So وَلَقَدْ مَنَنَّا عَلَى مُوسَى وَهَارُونَ. We favored Musa and Haaroon alayhi salam. This is a favor that we gave them. We gave them prophethood. And وَنَجَّيْنَاهُمَا وَقَوْمَهُمَا. We rescued the two of them from the great distress. This is that we saved them from something. And what did we save them from? The tyranny of Fir'aun. وَنَصَرْنَاهُمْ فَكَانُوا هُمُ الْغَالِبِينَ. We assisted them against Fir'aun and they became victorious, meaning surviving after Fir'aun and his army had been drowned. So after Fir'aun and his army drowned, Musa alayhi salatu wassalam and the Banu Israel, they were saved from this and they survived. وَآتَيْنَاهُمَا الْكِتَابَ الْمُسْتَبِينَ. We gave the two of them a book. Now this Al-Kitab and this book, it refers to the Torah. So Al-Kitab here refers to Torah. Al-Mustabin, that clearly elucidated or explains matters. So all the commands which were in the Torah, they were very clear. They were very easy to understand. And every command was such that not only was it a command, but it was such a command which was beneficial for a person in this world also and in the hereafter also. Sometimes if a person has authority and leadership, then he will command his subjects to do such things which may be beneficial for him but not beneficial for them. It's just in his interest. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, together with being Hakim and the supreme ruler, He is also Hakim, He is also the all-wise. And any command which Allah ta'ala gives us, there is only benefit in there for you and I if we were to carry it out. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has made alcohol haram. So you will find non-Muslims who have researched in this particular field who say that if humanity were to leave alcohol to one side then half of the hospitals and half of the prisons in the world would close down. There would be no need for these hospitals and these prisons. Because majority of the illnesses and majority of the crimes, their root, when the root is searched for, then we find that it was alcohol. It was intoxicants. Look, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given us such commands that in there the benefit is for you and I. So وَآتَيْنَاهُمَا الْكِتَابَ الْمُسْتَبِينَ وَهَدَيْنَاهُمَا الصِّرَاطَ الْمُسْتَقِيمَ, and we guided the two of them to the straight path. Now, when Musa and Haaroon alayhi salatu wassalam were guided to the straight path, then this means that when they called the Banu Israel towards their prophethood and towards believing in one Allah, then whoever accepted them, they were also guided to the straight path. وَتَرَكْنَا عَلَيْهِمَا فِي الْآخِرِينَ, and in their favor we left among those to come after them, Salamun ala Musa wa Haaroon, peace be to Musa and Haaroon alayhi salam. But these were the words which we left behind. What this means is that whenever we say the name of Musa alayhi salam and we say Haaroon alayhi salam, then we say alayhi salam, that may peace be upon them. And Allah Ta'ala mentions the same regarding the previous in Nuh alayhi salam also, and for Ibrahim alayhi salam also. Inna kadhalika najzil muhsinin. Thus do we reward those who do good. Thus do we reward those who do good. In here there is an indication that if we also want acceptance like how Musa and Haaroon alayhi salam were granted acceptance. Musa alayhi salam and Haaroon alayhi salam, till today we revere them. Till today we respect them. Till today we honor them. So if we also want that we remain honorable people, respectable people, not only during our lifetime but even after we have left this world, then the recipe to this is that just as they were muhsineen, they were those who did good, we also carry out good. Any person who obeys Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will not only grant him success during his lifetime, but even after he leaves this world, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will grant him honor in the grave also. And in this world, those people who remain after him, they will speak good of him. إِنَّهُمَا مِنْ إِبَادِنَا الْمُؤْمِنِينَ. They were certainly from our slaves who are mu'mineen. So until here Allah Ta'ala speaks about Musa alayhi salam and Haaroon alayhi salam very briefly. The more detailed incidents are mentioned in other parts of the Qur'an. Thereafter Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala moves on and speaks about another prophet of his, Hazrat Ilyas alayhi salam. وَإِنَّ إِلْيَاسَ لَمِنَ الْمُرْسَلِينَ. Indeed, Ilyas alayhi salam was from the Anbiya alayhimus salatu wassalam. He was from the prophets. One point to keep in mind regarding Ilyas alayhi salam is that Allah Ta'ala has mentioned him only 2 times in the entire Qur'an. On the first occasion, we find his mention in Surah Al-An'am. But in Surah Al-An'am, the only thing mentioned about Ilyas alayhi salam is his name. Nothing else. وَتِلْكَ حُجَّتُنَا آتَيْنَاهَا إِبْرَاهِيمَ وَإِسْحَاقَ وَيَعْقُوبَ. Allah Ta'ala mentions different prophets' names here. Ibrahim, Ishaq, Yaqub. كُلًّا هَدَيْنَا وَنُوحًا هَدَيْنَا مِنْ ذُرِّيَّتِهِ دَاوُدَ وَسُلَيْمَانَ وَأَيُّوبَ وَيُوسُفَ وَمُوسَى وَهَارُونَ وَكَذَلِكَ نَجْزِي الْمُحْسِنِينَ. And then وَزَكَرِيَّا وَيَحْيَا وَعِيسَى وَإِلْيَاسَ كُلٌّ مِّنَ الصَّالِحِينَ. They were all from the pious. The Ilyas alayhi salam's name is mentioned here. But besides his name, there is no reference to any part of his life. And the second place where Allah Ta'ala mentions regarding Ilyas alayhi salam is over here in Surah As-Saffat. But even here in Surah As-Saffat, there is a very brief mention regarding Ilyas alayhi salam. So in the whole Quran, Ilyas alayhi salam has been mentioned twice. In one place, only his name is mentioned. And in the second place, a very brief indication towards his life is mentioned. Now, this begs the question that is there any mention regarding Ilyas alayhi salam in the ahadith then? So the answer is no. There is no mention of Ilyas alayhi salatu wassalam in the ahadith also. So the only way to get some sort of information regarding Ilyas alayhi salam is that we have to refer to those narrations which are known as Israeli narrations. And what is Israeli narrations? Israeli narrations are those narrations where the scholars of the people of the book, meaning the Christians and the Jews, those scholars that were they were either Christians or they were either Jews, they reverted to Islam during the time of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Now, after accepting Islam, because they still had the knowledge of the Bible or the Psalms, the books of the Christians and the Jews, they take out narrations from the Bible and the Psalms. So these narrations, they are known as Israeli narrations. Now, can we deduce any rulings from these narrations or not? How authentic are they? So the answer is, the ulama mention that after studying the entire narration, if the narration does not contradict any usul and any principles of the Qur'an, then we say la nusaddiqu wa la nukadhibu. We do not accept the narration, nor do we reject it. It could be correct, it could be incorrect. Why? Because there is no guarantee that the narration they have taken from their Bible or from their Psalms, it hasn't gone any change at that particular time. We know for definite that the Bible is not in its original form, nor is any of the other divine books. So where has the change taken place? Where has there been no change? We do not know. So it could be correct, it could be incorrect, because it doesn't contradict any of the principles of the Qur'an. It could be correct, it could be incorrect. And if we find a narration which contradicts a usul and a principle of the Qur'an, then definitely we reject such a narration. So the likes of Hazrat Ka'b Ahbar radiyallahu ta'ala anhu and others, they were masters in the divine books of the people of the book, of the Christians and the Jews. And thereafter they accepted Islam. After accepting Islam, they would narrate such narrations that we find this in our divine book and we find this in our divine book. So sometimes, in order to understand the commentary of certain verses of the Qur'an, it becomes necessary to turn towards such narrations to get some sort of an idea of what these verses are speaking about. So the same can be said regarding these verses of Surah As-Saffat, that regarding Hazrat Ilyas alayhi salam, because we find no details in the ahadith, and in the Qur'an we find a very brief mention, then those Israeli narrations which don't contradict the verses of the Qur'an, we will get some sort of information from there so that at least we can understand these verses of the Qur'an. So وَإِنَّ إِلْيَاسَ لَمِنَ الْمُرْسَلِينَ, indeed Ilyas alayhi salam was from the Anbiya alayhimus salatu wassalam. One point which these Israeli narrations suggest is that he was sent to the Banu Israel. So So from the many prophets that were sent to the Banu Israel, Ilyas alayhi salam was also sent to the Banu Israel. He was born in Jordan, and in Jordan it was a place by the name of Jal'ad. This is where he was born. Some opinions suggest that he was from the progeny of Hazrat Haaroon alayhi salam. Allah Ta'ala has just mentioned regarding Musa and Haaroon alayhi salam, and now he's mentioning Ilyas alayhi salam. This could be a connection that Ilyas alayhi salam was from the progeny of Haaroon alayhi salam. According to the majority, he came into this world after a prophet whose name is Hizqeel alayhi salam, and before Ilyas alayhi salam. Ilyas has also been mentioned in the Qur'an. Wa Ismaila wal Yasa'a wa Yunus wa Luta. So he came in the world after Hizqeel alayhi salam and before Ilyas alayhi salam. After the demise of Sulaiman alayhi salam, a war took place amongst the Banu Israel. And as a result of this war, the Banu Israel, they split into two different groups. One group was called either Yahuda or Yahudiya, and their markaz and their center was Baytul Maqdis. And there was the second group which was known as Israel, and their center at that time was in a place called Samira, and in present day this place is now called Nablus. So we have these two places now, or these two groups, one called Yahudiya and one called Israel. In Israel there was a king, and this king, his wife, she worshipped an idol, and this idol was called Baal. The name of the idol was Baal. Allama Qurtubi mentions that they had made this idol, and this idol had 4 heads. And this is the very idol that in the time of Nabi sallallahu alayhi wasallam, it was given the name Hubul. Those who are familiar with the Seerah, then they will know that there is a idol called Hubul during the time of Nabi sallallahu alayhi wasallam. This was the same idol which in this time was called Baal. And many years even before this queen was worshipping this Baal, there were many people that used to worship this idol. And it was because of this that there is a city in Sham, in Greater Syria, and the name of this city is Ba'la-Bakka. So this place called Ba'la-Bakka, the reason it's called Ba'la-Bakka is because in Ba'la-Bakka there was this idol called Baal, which many people used to worship. Anyway, this queen in Israel, she made it necessary that whoever lives here, they have to worship this idol Baal. So she herself used to also worship, and the people also now had to worship this idol. And as a result, it became a place of idol worship. Now, because it became a place of idol worship, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sent down Hazrat Ilyas alayhi salatu wassalam. And Hazrat Ilyas alayhi salatu wassalam began to propagate the message of Tawheed and the oneness of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. When the queen, she sees this, she takes her husband in privacy and she says to her husband that we must kill him. So the plan is made to kill Ilyas alayhi salam. Ilyas alayhi salatu wassalam receives the news that the king and queen are planning on killing you. As a result, he goes and hides inside a cave. He spends a few days in this cave, and finally he makes dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And he says to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that, oh Allah, I have a plan. To prove my prophethood, what what I want you to do is I want you to cause a drought in this place of Israel. And once there is a drought, then I will go to the king and I will say to the king that I am the Prophet of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and the only way you can gain rain is if I make dua to Allah, then Allah ta'ala will send down the rain. Something very simple the king will be able to understand. Allah ta'ala accepts this request. There's a drought in Israel. Hazrat Ilyas alayhi salatu wasalam goes to the king and he requests the king that the only way we can gain rain is if I make dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, because I am the Prophet of Allah. And it is only Allah who can send down the rain. Your idol Baal, there is no way that you can pray to this idol and the idol will send down rain. Now, they were in a desperate situation. So they said, make dua. Ilyas alayhi salatu wasalam makes the dua. Before the dua, there is another incident which takes place. And this is that the king says that you are claiming to be the Prophet of Allah, but as far as this Baal idol is concerned, this Baal idol has also sent 450 prophets. There are 450 individuals in our town who are also claiming to be the prophets, not the prophets of Allah, but the prophet of this idol Baal. So Ilyas alayhi salatu wasalam is again informed through revelation that for this what you need to do is say to the king that each and every person who is claiming prophethood, he must slaughter an animal. And I will also slaughter an animal. And thereafter Allah Ta'ala will send down a fire from the skies. And this fire will burn only one animal. And this will be an indication that this is the Prophet of Allah Ta'ala. This also takes place. Now, upon this, it's Ilyas alayhi salam. First of all, the 450 prophets, they sacrifice their animals. And they begin to make dua to their idol Baal. But nothing happens. Finally, Ilyas alayhi salatu wasalam slaughters his animal. A fire comes from the sky and burns this animal. Hundreds of people who witnessed this incident, they accept the prophethood of Ilyas alayhi salam. But these 450 prophets, they remained adamant that they are the prophets of Baal. They have been sent by this idol. But now, because Ilyas alayhi salatu wasalam, he had a large following, then the war takes place and these 450 individuals are killed in this battle. But after this, the queen, she again pressurizes the people to accept this idol of Baal and worship Baal. So they all turn away from Islam and they begin to worship the idol again. Now Ilyas alayhi salatu wasalam, he is instructed by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that he should go to the other village. The people that were split into two, one was Yahuda and the other Israel. So now he goes to the second village. He goes there, he calls them towards the oneness of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. They do not accept him. Allah ta'ala sends down his punishment, they are all destroyed. Ilyas alayhi salam comes back to these people. And he says, look, I went there, I called them towards the oneness of Allah. They did not accept, they have been destroyed. If you don't accept, you will also be destroyed. But they don't listen to him. So Allah Ta'ala sends down his punishment here also, and these people are destroyed also. So it's regarding this that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions in Surah As-Saffat, that indeed Ilyas alayhi salam was from the Anbiya alayhimus salam. إِذْ قَالَ لِقَوْمِهِ أَلَا تَتَّقُونَ. Remember the time when he said to his people, do you not fear Allah's punishment for worshipping others besides him? أَتَدْعُونَ بَعْلًا. Do you worship your idol named Ba'al, وَتَذَرُونَ أَحْسَنَ الْخَالِقِينَ, and leave out the best of all creators. Allah Rabbakum wa Rabba Abaikum al-Awwaleen. Allah is your Rabb and the Rabb of your predecessors. فَكَذَّبُوهُ, they rejected him. فَإِنَّهُمْ لَمُحْضَرُونَ, so they will certainly be brought forward, meaning identified for punishment. إِلَّا عِبَادَ اللَّهِ الْمُخْلَصِينَ, of course the situation of Allah's chosen bondsmen will be different. وَتَرَكْنَا عَلَيْهِ فِي الْآخِرِينَ, and in his favor we left among those to come after him, Salamun ala Ilyasin, peace be to Ilyasin, meaning Ilyas alayhi salam. Inna kadhalika najzil muhsinin, thus do we reward those who do good. Innahu min ibadina al-mu'minin, he was certainly from our slaves who are mu'minin. Just a couple of points and we will conclude today's lesson. One is that here Allah Ta'ala mentions, or rather it's the speech of Ilyas alayhi salam, that he says that do you worship Ba'al and leave out Ahsan al-Khaliqeen, the best of all creators. So there could be a question here, that if Allah is the best of creators, then does this mean there are also other creators? The answer is no. Allah Ta'ala, when he says Ahsanul Khaliqeen, this doesn't mean that he is the best of creators and there are also other creators. What it means is that he is the only creator, and anybody else who carries out any other act which may be like creating, which is making something, then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is better than all of those individuals who you perceive to be creators. Those who worship idols, then their belief is that these idols are our creators. So Allah Ta'ala is saying that those individuals or those beings or those idols who you perceive to be creators, Allah is better than all of them. It doesn't mean that Allah is also a creator and they are also creators. And a second meaning is that all those people who make something in this world, then when they make something, they make it from those items which are already made. A person makes a chair using 4 or 5 different parts. So those 4 or 5 different parts are already made, and he just assembles them. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the only being who is a khaliq, who is a creator. That he brings something into existence which had no existence before this. So he's a khaliq and he's a creator. So he's the best of creators. The best of creators does not mean that there are other creators also. It means he's the only creator. And finally, Allah Ta'ala here mentions Salamun ala Ilyasin, that may peace be upon Ilyasin. So a question could arise that why did Allah Ta'ala mention here Ilyasin? Because the name is Ilyas. Even in the beginning, in verse 123, he says, وَإِنَّ إِلْيَاسَ لَمِنَ الْمُرْسَلِينَ. And in Surah Al-An'am also we find the word Ilyas. But here, in verse number 130, we find, he says Ilyasin. He doesn't say Ilyas. He doesn't say Salamun ala Ilyas. He says Salamun ala Ilyasin. There's a Ya and Noon added at the end of the name. So the commentators of the Qur'an mention that this was a practice of the Arabs, that when they would come across a word which was a non-Arabic word, an Ajmi word, then they would many a times add Ya and Noon at the end of it. So you have Ilyas, they have added Ya and Noon and made it Ilyasin. And an example of this can be found in Surah At-Teen, where Allah Ta'ala says, وَالتِّينِ وَالزَّيْتُونِ وَالطُّورِ سِينِينَ. So وَالطُّورِ سِينِينَ, this is the Mount Sinai. So it should be Sina. The actual word is Sina. But seen and they have added ya and noon at the end. So in the Quran we find waturi sinin. So this is also an example of this. And if someone was to raise this objection after this, that if Ilyasin and Sinin are non-Arabic words, then Allah Ta'ala says in the Quran, Inna anzalnahu Qur'anan Arabiyan. We have revealed the Quran in Arabic. So the entire Quran should be in Arabic. Why is there non-Arabic words? So the answer to this is very simple, that right now I've been speaking, and this entire lesson, if you were to speak to one another, what will you say? What language was the lesson delivered in? So you will say the lesson was delivered in English. But during the lesson, we had used many Arabic words also. Sometimes in a 1 hour English speech, there may be few Urdu words also, few Arabic words also. But nobody will say that the lesson was in English, Arabic and Urdu. You will use that language in which the majority of the lesson was delivered in. So because the dominant language of the Quran is Arabic, the majority of the words is Arabic. If there are a few words here and there from other languages, that doesn't go contrary to this verse that we have revealed the Quran in the Arabic language. So anyway, these are a few points which I had the ability to share with you regarding these verses of the Quran. One very important lesson which we learn is that we need to obey Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and the messages of the Prophets alayhimus salatu was salam. By obeying Allah and the messages of the Prophets alayhimus salatu was salam, especially our beloved Rasul sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, just as Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala granted these prophets success, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will also grant us success. And as we learn that these individuals who rejected the prophets and the messages of these prophets, just as Allah Ta'ala punished them, if we were to also turn away from the lessons which our Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam left behind, then there is every possibility that Allah Subhanahu Wa Ta'ala sends down His punishment upon us also. So for this reason, we need to study our deen, and after studying our deen, we need to practice upon our deen. We make dua to Allah Subhanahu Wa Ta'ala that He make us from the mu'mineen and the believers, and He grants us steadfastness upon our deen, and He make us leave this world with iman, and in the hereafter may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grant us all Jannatul Firdaus, save us from the fire of Jahannam. Wa akhiru da'wana alhamdulillahi rabbil alameen, wa sallallahu ala nabiyyina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa ashabihi ajma'in.